Brand new on ABC 17 News at 6:30, an MU Med student and cancer researcher is headed to our nation's capital.
Dan Miller is among a group of researchers walking the halls of the Capitol, asking lawmakers to pump in more funding into medical research. And for Miller, it's personal. He's been living with thyroid cancer for more than 10 years. ABC 17's Dan Messinio talked to Dan Miller and joins us live from our newsroom. Dan, he says there's a shortage in cancer research funding.
He does, and Miller says it's hindering diagnosis and treatment of cancer. He says many medical students won't go into research because there's very little money in it, so he heads out tomorrow to appeal to U.S. lawmakers. Dan Miller is a husband and a father of two. He's an MU Med student and researcher, and he's been living with cancer for more than 10 years.
The scariest thing is not knowing the answer to the question of whether or not I have 10 to 15 years or more to live, or 3 to 4.
And Miller's not alone. The American Cancer Society estimates in 2014 there were more than 14 million cancer survivors in the U.S. But as of late, federal money for cancer research is hard to come by.
People in my situation that want to continue to do research, that want to ask big questions, that really want science to drive their inquiry, but a type of science that really tries to improve people's lives. We're at a situation where it's difficult to ask those sorts of questions because there's essentially not enough money.
Miller says the U.S. is a leader in biomedical research, but maybe not for long. Federal dollars going to the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, are not keeping pace with inflation, leaving a funding shortage of 21%.
If we continue with this huge discrepancy in the amount of money that's needed and the amount of money that's provided for biomedical research, we're going to lose that leadership role.
Congress's 2016 spending bill appropriated $2 billion to the NIH. $264 million of that went to the National Cancer Institute. But Miller says more is needed. Tomorrow he'll be in D.C. to make the case to U.S. Missouri lawmakers.
Cancer is actually something that we think we can make progress on in terms of increased funding. It's something that everybody can agree on, which side of the aisle you're on.
The American Association for Cancer Research, the organization Miller will represent in D.C., is asking lawmakers for a 7% increase in NIH funding for next year. It's an increase of about $2.5 billion, which would go to biomedical research. Reporting live in the newsroom, Dan Messinio, ABC 17 News.
Dan, thank you. Just today, one of Missouri's U.S. senators, Claire McCaskill, announced she has been diagnosed with breast cancer. Senator McCaskill says the diagnosis is scary, but she says she plans on making a full recovery.